On this week's Chit Chat, we talk about the incredible number of expansions and games coming out at Essen this year. We dust off some of our classics, but save a little bit of time for video games, and of course talk about Porgs and Jedi. Welcome back to our number 4 episode of Chit Chat. This one's getting posted a little bit late, but we still wanted to get it done. We are going to be talking about a few different things tonight. We're going to be talking about Essen. This is not, I repeat, not our Essen preview. This is our preview to our Essen preview. So we're going to be talking about just a couple titles and maybe just some trends about Essen. We're going to be talking about the games we've been playing, of course, as well as the Star Wars trailer and maybe some Blade Runner, Ryan.
Maybe a little Blade Runner, Gary.
So as always, we got Ryan, we've got Gary, myself, David, and Jeremy here. So let's get underway and start talking about Essen.
There's a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about. Why don't you start, Ryan?
Why don't I start? Can we talk about the sheer number of expansions that are coming out at Essen?
Big topic.
It's an insane amount of expansions.
Yeah, we're seeing a shift in the industry for sure with expansions in general. I mean, we've always seen expansions for games, but now it seems like this Essen, we're seeing a lot of these Euro games, which over the past 5-10 years, didn't see any expansions. Now they're getting 2, 3, 4, 5 expansions in the case of Seven Wonders. I don't know how many expansions we're at right now, but we're still seeing content being released and dribbled out. What do you guys think?
Well, some games, I think, have gotten better with some of the expansions, like the Orleans Traded Intrigue expansion. I will never play Orleans without that again. It made that game so much better, and I love the original
also a great
base
game.
Yeah,
already. Yeah.
One of my favorites of all time. But then there are some expansions, like, was this necessary? You know, is it just kind of superfluous and you're just adding just to add more to a game that, you know, maybe somebody loves, and they're going to buy it, but does it make the game better?
Yeah, my question
is it lazy?
My question is, are these expansions created at the time or the conceptual time of the design and development of the game, or are they being designed years later as an add-on to that game? And we have seen for a number of years season passes and DLC content come out for video games. And there's a lot of people that hate that idea. And they don't want to pay the extra 20, 30, 40, in some cases $100 for a video game to get a game that they feel that they can get all of that content with just the base game. And then companies are stringing them along, adding expansions and making them buy more into that game that should have been released when the content was originally released.
Do you think board games might go to something like that? I mean, it's interesting.
This is what, I mean,
because, you know, you have, like, Asmodeus really taken in a lot of companies. And I could see them maybe get this game and maybe get a pass. And then as expansions come out, we'll send them to you.
I don't know.
I
hope that would never happen.
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't have as cynical a perspective on this.
Right.
I think a lot of these expansions are, I think when designers design games, that they're often percolating lots of ideas that don't end up in the first edition of the game. A lot of designers have ideas for expansions in their head. I think some of these expansions we're seeing this year for games that just released last year probably fall into that category. But then there's like the Isle of Skye expansion that's coming out. I mean, that game's been out for a little while now. I don't think that is an example of, oh, they just had that ready to go. Now, whether we'll see whether these things improve the game or aren't necessary, that remains to be seen.
Like Feast for Odin. I mean, that game is massive, and
that
you're getting an expansion.
And I don't know
what else are you going to add to that game?
That one was just recently added to the list on BGG, and there's not much information on it.
I can't even imagine what it would be like.
It is kind of hard to fathom. I mean, we talked about it a little bit. You know, there could be some new islands and things like that. I can't imagine there's like a wholesale shift in the mechanics of the game or some sort of new
element.
like
60 worker placement
I would be
spots.
surprised.
We've doubled your actions you can take.
Exactly.
That was 125.
But a lot, even like Marco Polo is another example where that game's been out for a while.
Yeah, just got reprinted because...
Yeah, exactly.
I think they reprinted it because of the expansion.
Yeah.
Or the popularity of the game.
I think the popularity of the game is the key thing here. You see a lot of expansion, like you mentioned Seven Wonders. That game was huge. And of course, it had expansion after expansion come out after a while. I think it's a good sign in that we're seeing more of these Euro games more embraced over here. You know, things like Lorenzo and Feast and Terraforming Mars and things like this, which had a lot of success, Euros that had a lot of success, more so than they might have in the past. And I think that's why we're seeing expansions to some of these. And all of those have them.
I agree, and I am being cynical, but I also think they need to be very careful. There are games that are meant to have expansions. I'm looking at one over here on the shelf called Dragonfire. Seventh Continent, these games that have these, you know, curses in them, or they have characters that you can add to them and make the game different. But when you're just adding mechanics to add mechanics to the game, you have to be very careful that you don't break the original game, or you don't change the structure of the game when you're doing so.
Yeah, well, and I also think something like Seventh Continent, I mean, this kind of brings up the whole topic of how games are designed to offer some longevity, not inside the box, but like, for instance, Time Stories. You know, Time Stories was built around that model, obviously, but it makes some sense in my opinion, because I've always felt this way about the video game side of things too. If you're getting your value out of the initial purchase, then you should just be quiet and enjoy the fact that there's more content coming. Even if they had content ready, I think it's fair if they're giving someone a $50, $60 experience out of a box and then offering more down the road, even if they had it ready. Because even if they had it ready and then they're giving you a $130 experience, but for $60 out of the box, why wouldn't they, from a business standpoint, stretch that out over some time?
Well, so I think a lot of it is, too, deadlines, of course. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're talking about Pfister, who is, I think, one of our favorite game designers. I don't think Pfister's ever trying to milk money out of the customer, but the game might be already going to print, and then boom, it clicks. Oh my God, I just had this great idea.
Yeah.
I need to get this in there, but it's too late. So either you just let that idea die, or you come up with an expansion.
Well, and I think some of the cynicism, if there is some out there, is that, you know, there are some games that are just okay. It's like, but they knew the expansion was coming, and that would make the game even better. Like, one to my mind was New Bedford. I think the base game was just really kind of blah. But when you played the expansion, but you had to get you had to buy the extra, it's like, well, this is a whole different game. This is so much better. That's kind of frustrating. Like, why didn't you just put that all in the box?
Well, that was all at the same time, right?
And it was at the
I
same
think
time.
this is
and
a
I don't
different
want
problem.
games to start doing to that, because that's just one example.
Well, they
I'm sure
already are,
there's
though.
out there.
With Kickstarter, that's already happening.
Well,
if you look at Kickstarters these days, it's, you know, pledge $100 for the game. But if you pledge 150, you get the game in the expansion.
You get the non-broken version.
Right, yeah. You get,
Well,
you get the better
if
version.
it's that, I don't know how
incomplete
much of it's
version.
that, but if that's the case, if it's an expansion that actually makes the game the way you really should be playing it, that's problematic.
But you also have to remember, we're a very small portion of the consumer audience. You also have these other people that are online, your internet trolls, who are going to say, okay, well, if I bought Seven Wonders Duel, and the game is just okay, I'm talking from my own perspective, it's just okay, but I have to buy the expansion to make it really good, why didn't you just make it really good from the start, right?
Right.
So how do you get around that as a publisher? And as a consumer, you're going to hear a lot of people saying that. Well, I don't want to buy 3 expansions to make the game what it could have been directly out of the box.
Well, I would see, again, on that point, I kind of think that, like that example specifically, I feel like it is a good, I mean, you have a different opinion than some on the original game, but I think it's a good game. I think it's fair, though, if a designer looks at, like, okay, I have some more ideas for an expansion, plus I'm hearing a lot of feedback once the game's out there, and if that feedback kind of helps drive someone adjust their expansion plans to sort of potentially address some of those concerns people might have had for the original release, while I think that's a good thing. Like, I don't look at that as a standpoint of like, well, you should have done that from in the first case, because they just didn't have the game at that.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know.
You
don't
don't
know
know.
until, I mean, you've got 1 million player hours out in your game now, which you could not get that playtesting. I mean, there's going to be feedback.
Right, and we've played billions of games with flaws.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and if people did expansions for them, maybe they would address some of those flaws. From what I understand, not that I think Lorenzo is flawed, but you've heard that the Lorenzo expansion not only is more to the game, but helps do some things to balance it so some of the exploits that exist might be
it's not
addressed.
a broken game by any means, but there is a strategy or two out there that are just dominant,
Pretty strong,
it's stronger than the other ones, and it seems like the next expansion is going to help adjust that.
And I think that's
from what I
great.
understand. Right, and now that's
It's
good.
interesting because I grew up playing Magic the Gathering. I know you played those type of games. TCGs, this is basically the TCG, LCG, and CCG model, is where you have broken content or content that doesn't quite work, and you release an expansion that fixes that. And then the problem is you just keep that cycle going because something is broken within it. So to me, I'm on the fence on both of them. I like to see expansions. I mean, we're looking at Marco Polo, Lorenzo, Fields of Arle, which is a super old game, getting an expansion now. Isle of Skye, Feast for Odin.
Terraforming.
And Terraforming Mars. And it's like, yeah, these are cool, but for people like us, we play a lot of games. Like, I don't know how much we're really going to delve into playing those games again. Like, are they really going to be games we're going to go out and purchase right away? I mean, yeah, I want the Lorenzo expansion.
Right?
It's got to change the game dramatically, or make it different for me to run out and want to grab it.
Sure. I think that list of games, at least for me, maybe not every single one of them, but all of them are games I've actually pulled off the shelf within the last 2 or 3 months again. And that's the sort of thing that would make me want to consider. I mean, I'm going to be getting those expansions. I'm trying to think of one of those games. I want to take a wait-and-see approach on the Feast for Odin one, because I really need to know more about that before I get that. I mean, I don't get that one off the shelf a ton.
Right.
But Marco Polo, I get it off enough to where the people I play it with, we know the game. So I'm interested to see something that changes that up a little bit.
Yeah, it's adding a whole other board. It's expanding the world that you get to be in and everything.
And same with terraforming, too.
And that's adding more cards this time. It's not just a game board. It's adding now more cards.
Yeah, well, a whole new aspect. I mean,
changing the gameplay, so we'll see if that helps. Yeah.
Does anyone know? So, aside from our feel, and I think this sounds like we're all pretty negative on expansions. I don't think we are. No. I'm definitely not.
No, I'm just quite a few.
There is just an inordinate amount of expansions
we've never
coming out
seen
at Essen.
When I look at the Essen list and I look at my top 10 games, 9 of those 10 games are expansions.
Yeah, you kind of have
to. Which it's never been that way.
Yeah.
We've even talked about our preview being one where we maybe don't include the expansions. I'm not sure I'm going to follow that rule, but there's so many expansions, like you said, they fill the list a little bit. Because all the other games, even though they sound great at face value, I don't know enough about them. At least with the expansions, I know the pedigree, I know the base behind these things. I can assume that they're going to be, for expansions, good expansions, because they're from the guy who did Marco Polo. They're from the guy who did
That's the thing, there's some good games coming out of Essen, and that there's like that Sanctuary Endangered Species game looks awesome, but I've never played it. So if I had to choose where I'm spending my money on that, or like an expansion to Lorenzo that I know I love, I know I'm going to play, like I'd probably get the expansion.
Well, and I mean the obvious point to make here on expansions too is you're pot committed already, right? We've already spent money on the games, so it's easier. It's an easier buy, right?
Well, it's a proven formula.
Exactly.
So, they're in business of making money. So if you got a good game, you have a good expansion, and make the expansion, people will buy it.
Maybe when expansions come out, that's that moment that we should all decide whether we're going to call something or not.
Right?
The true test is, are you going to get an expansion for the game? No? Then get it off your shelf.
Right.
So our point is, the industry is definitely changing. We're seeing more expansions than ever before. We don't think that's going to change at all. Let's talk about some of the new Essen titles that we're interested in. We'll talk more, as David said, in our preview, but just go around the table and talk about a couple games that you're super interested in.
Yeah, don't give away your big number one.
Yeah.
Or you do.
Try to keep the list secret, right? Top secret. Well, I just
only 980 games.
Yeah,
so.
Right?
Let's
I
go
just
through
mentioned
all
one.
900 and some games.
Sanctuary I just mentioned, which is what I'm super excited about. And also just all of the new exits.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about expansion. There's like 6 new exit games coming out.
Yeah, those would fall into that category too, honestly.
Right.
Which is crazy, but they're so much fun. Right?
Yeah.
All the exits, the unlocks, the escape rooms. I mean, there are a ton of them coming out of Essen this year.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool model. Not to get back on that other subject, but that's almost like an episodic
one-time play
model.
games.
Yeah, those are cool.
You had a game on your list called Arkham Noir. What is that?
Yeah, I don't know a ton about it yet. I've been researching it, but there's not
Arkham, and it's kind of noir.
Right, it's a noir detective game where you're solving cases, but it's kind of got that Cthulhu mythos.
Is there any like
names,
background. Specific designer name attached to it?
Not that I recognize. There is. I didn't recognize the name.
Interesting.
It looked super interesting. The art style looked cool. It looked really thematic. But obviously there's not a lot out there yet for it. I think a couple playthroughs.
Okay.
But yeah, it looks good.
A couple that aren't on my list I'm thinking about. One is, I like Captain Sonar when you get enough people to play it.
Yeah.
Okay, there is another group of guys that have made this game called U-Boat or U-Boot. I can't remember exactly which one it is.
Those could be very different games.
Yeah. But when you look at the pictures, they've actually created I don't think you get this in a game, but an actual like submarine. It is like super gamery Captain Sonar.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm looking at, because I am a sucker for submarine wartime stuff, like the old movie Das Boot, if you've never seen, like one of the most classic submarines.
Is this a real
ever.
game or something?
It's a real game.
Okay.
They even have their own website. And I'm like, whoa, this, I mean, you have your own player kind of tableau type deal, and this is how you're working, you know, everybody's got a role, and you're moving people along inside your submarine. That's what it kind of looks like from the pictures. So I'm really kind of interested to see
How big
more
is
about
this submarine?
Well, on the table, they had a huge submarine with figures and stuff, so
Interesting.
that might be some big deluxe thing you get.
Well, like just a show.
Otherwise,
to show
it's probably
right?
just a piece of paper, you know, like maybe
Yeah.
a D&D type thing. So that, and then there's a couple, like, well, the expansion, like the Isle of Skye we've already kind of talked about. That's like going to turn Isle of Skye to like more gamery.
Yeah,
type
Isle of
gamery.
Skye-
And that looked, because I love Pfister, he knows what
Yeah.
he's doing, and he's going to change the gameplay.
Yeah, that game
That'll be fun.
could stand to. It's a great game,
Yes.
but it could have another layer to it for sure for
Yeah.
hardcore gamers. I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And not to, you know, dwell on that game, but it's a great entry-level game already.
Yeah.
So I think this might be the first time I've ever said, like, hey, you want an entry-level game? Play Isle of Skye. You want an enthusiast game? You know, play Isle of Skye, but, you know, bring the expansion in. So it's like a natural way to get people into the next level of games because they already know Isle of Skye.
So, a couple games I'm looking forward to. One of which will probably be on some of our lists, but the other one probably not. This one I don't think is for sale. It's called Imaginarium. This is a game from Bruno Catala,
Really?
and I think Bombix is putting it out over there. And it's been in kind of like development hell a little bit. It's been
Interesting.
cooking for a while. It's gorgeous looking. I know very little about it, but it looks like it has these really great engine building cards to it.
I'm sold.
So kind of a bigger game. He's had some
No,
smaller games lately.
It looked. I don't know how quote unquote big it is, but it looks like it's mostly just card driven.
Okay.
But the cards themselves, when you see that and I saw Bruno's name, I was like,
He has been putting
there's
out
no way I'm
content
not
like crazy.
He has been putting out a lot of games. Some of them I love,
It's like the
and some
next
of them
Knizia.
I don't like as much. But I usually it's a safe
Yeah.
bet with him. And then the other game, which will likely be on a lot of our lists, is it Altiplano? Is that how you pronounce it?
Altiplano. Yeah.
Altiplano. This is from the designer of Orleans, and I have very little knowledge about this, but it is bag building
Yes.
like Orleans, and I think it even uses those same
Yeah.
exact like wooden discs or discs.
Well,
if
it'll
you,
be
well, we'll
discs.
see
We'll
if
have
it
to
gets
get
we'll see if it gets
deluxified. It has to
deluxified.
be Orleans.
But that's one. Well, it's actually my all-time favorite game.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely looking forward to that
Yeah.
one too.
The only one I'm going to mention is Hunt for the Ring. I got an
Is that
advanced-
releasing there?
It is.
It
I got
is.
an advanced rule book a couple weeks ago, and I've been reading through it. And there's actually a component in the game that you can play it with War of the Ring.
Are you
What,
serious?
really?
With that, yeah. So
Wow.
it just looks super interesting. It's much meatier than I thought. It's like 28 pages of rules.
Wow.
So there's a lot of stuff going on.
I know we've been
It's-
excited about that one for a long
Yeah,
time.
I mean, we originally saw this at Origins last year, so
Yeah.
it's finally seeing release. That's the only one I'm going to talk about.
Yeah. And the minis
For
look
now.
great.
Yeah,
Especially
the minis are
Gandalf.
cool. Yeah,
Dude, that's
Oh,
going
it's
to
gonna
be
be
so
so cool.
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
very neat.
All right. So quickly, change of subject. What have we been playing?
Keyflower. I've been playing a lot
Keyflower?
of Keyflower
Really?
lately. You know, trying to find games that are good at 2 players. We've been playing, like I said, a lot of Seven Wonders Duel, but it was, you know, let's bring on something else. And, you know, usually bidding and auction type games don't work well with 2 players. But, man, Keyflower is just great.
You should try Key to the City London.
Oh, that's a great one.
I need
If
to. I
you
want
haven't-
to.
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah,
a copy.
Key
you
to
can
the
take.
City London was pretty
I
good.
kinda wanna
It's the
play
only
through all
key
of
game
them
I've
now,
played.
Oh, he has a new one coming out at Essen, too.
Keeper.
Yeah, Keeper.
Keeper.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
sounds like-
running out of.
Yeah.
is it just as good as at 2 players as
Yeah, it's fine.
Keyflower?
Yeah,
Keyflower
it's
is
good.
great with 2.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing.
What have you been?
Well, let's
you've
see.
been buying some
I know.
old Euro
I've been
games
buying.
lately.
I tell you, my
Spending
love,
some
my
money.
continued love for the older stuff
Yeah.
continues. I've played Castles of Burgundy, but I've never had it, so I've bought that.
Yeah.
I got, of course, you all know I've said it, Palaces of Carrara.
Yep.
I found a copy of Bruges, which is like impossible to find a decent copy.
How much did you spend on that?
And
$60,
I
right?
spent 60
That's not
bucks.
bad.
That's not
bad.
You want to
bad.
find a brand new one, you're going to be over $100, and they're
Yeah.
rare. I
mean,
wish
I think I-
Z-Man would reprint that.
Yeah, I think when I bought that new, it was probably $50.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
$60
so you're
isn't
not-
Yeah,
bad.
and I got Trajan's coming.
Oh, really?
Yeah, bought Trajan.
Have you played it?
I have not played
Oh,
it,
okay.
but I love the theme and
It's a
everything.
great game. It's one of the blandest looking games
Yeah,
ever
well,
made.
they're all
but
bland
it's
looking. And Hansa Teutonica.
Nice.
So that's what I've been up to.
not played it. Well, you played Bruges. I
Played
introduced
Bruges.
you to
Oh,
Bruges.
is a great game.
I had introduced
Wow,
you-
is that game
yeah,
fun?
I showed Gary Seasons, as you know, a month ago.
Yeah.
Or so. And I actually think there's a few things that Bruges has in common with
Notre Dame. Did you
with-
feel the common thread of Notre Dame as
Oh,
well?
sure.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
Felt
Notre
has
Dame
so
is
many of those,
super
like,
fun.
oh, pay attention to this or you're screwed.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And Bruges has that big time with
Yeah.
the threat tokens that you pick
The
up.
pie-shaped
So
Right.
tokens, yeah.
I played Bruges with you, and then because it was one of those experiences where I was like, man, I forgot how good this was. Played it the very next night with my other gaming group. I took it to my girlfriend's this weekend with the intention of playing it. We did not. But I've been playing
I
Bruges.
need to play
and,
that.
You'll love it.
Haven't played yet, but just to threaten you all, I did buy the starter set for Dungeons and Dragons, and I just
Interesting.
might try my hand at DMing. I'm not sure who my guinea pigs are
That
going
would
to
be
be.
a lot of fun.
I'd try
but
that.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I want
I
to
like
try it out
D&D.
for sure.
I played Stone Age again multiple times in my
Oh,
Yeah, you
life.
played
game
a
is
ton with
so
your
Still
wife.
a
much
good
fun.
game.
We played it like
That's a
Always
great
four
game in my-
times with the expansion. Yeah, it is a fantastic game. Played London with her. We, of course, have a review up for Agra now, which is going to be a huge game at Essen. Played Barron Park, introduced it to a new group of gamers I've never played games before. And
Great introductory.
yeah, it's a really good game. But I've also been playing a lot of video games, more than I have in the past year.
Well,
I get on these weird spurts, and my wife knows this. I'll play board games nonstop for months and months and months, and then I'll play video games for like a month, and then I get sick of them, and then I go back to board games. It's this weird cycle
Been
that
a
I go
good
in. But
month for video games, though.
I've been finishing up Horizons, Middle Earth: Shadow of War, Evil Within 2, and of course downloading right now South Park, which just comes out tonight at midnight. So,
Oh, it does come out tonight.
yeah. So
The
I've
fractured butthole.
So yeah, I've been playing a lot of video games. So
I'm still trying to bring peace to Hyrule, so
I still haven't gotten back to Zelda, and the only video game I've played is I'm a pinball sucker.
Oh, I love
And
pinball.
I have pinball effects, and I literally
It's such a
bought
great
every
game,
table
though.
for pinball effects.
It's so much. It's addictive.
Yeah, so they released a new version, and they had a new set of tables that were universal themed. So they have an E.T. table, a Back to the Future table, and a Jaws
Oh,
table.
that's awesome.
And they're all really good.
That's cool.
Yeah, really cool. So to wrap things up really quickly, because we're probably way over time at this point, want to talk about the Last Jedi trailer. This
Yeah.
thing dropped, what, about a week ago now?
Yeah.
just
last
talk about the porgs
Monday.
the entire time.
Yes.
The screaming port.
Yeah.
Now, I know I'm a Borg apologist. I actually like the boards, but
He was
you don't.
he was pretty cute. I
was
gotta
pretty
admit,
cute
he
in
was
the
pretty
trailer.
cute.
If they had introduced them that way originally and just left it at that, I think everyone
Now,
would
if
have been.
Chewie grabs him and puts him in his mouth, that would be the greatest cinema experience of all time.
I have seen a behind-the-scenes photo that
the
looks
feather
like
coming out of his
Chewie
mouth?
has like a feather or something in
You
his
think that was
mouth.
a joke? You think that was a real?
Fake news.
It didn't look.
Fake
It didn't look photoshopped, but
No,
we'll
but I
see.
think maybe like a gag, like.
Oh, I
don't
don't
know.
know.
It didn't-
I don't know.
I mean, that would be great though.
So, trailer overall,
Right.
It seems to
Fantastic.
be a huge misdirection on a variety of different things.
Maybe,
right?
maybe.
Oh, I think
yeah.
like every line is a misdirection in that
Yeah.
trailer.
Well, they definitely. So Ryan Johnson came out beforehand, said, "Great trailer, but if you want to go into the movie clean, maybe not watch it." So he's kind of implying there may have been spoilers.
There's
I
definitely
think he
spoilers.
was-
I think that's all
Playing it up.
planned.
I think
Yeah.
that
Like
was
it's
a bit of
phony.
misdirection in and of itself, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
especially-
definitely some serious spoilers in the trailer though.
What would you consider to be a spoiler?
By the
'Cause
way,
this-
hold on. By the way, what we might be talking about here may include spoilers, so don't
we
yell
haven't
at
watched
us in
the
the
trailer.
comments.
I don't know if
So-
they could be spoilers because we don't
for
know.
example,
right?
but we
have
don't
no
know
idea.
what's happening, but we see scenes in the trailer like Finn going up against Phasma. So
Well, that's not a spoiler because it happened in the trailer.
I'm pretty
right?
sure that's happening.
Right.
well, right.
Although
So,
we have seen movies that don't have
but
things
my
happen.
point is like you see that now when that scene comes in the movie, you know.
Well, I think the two big misdirections
He's about
here
to fight
were.
Phasma,
I
right?
see what you're saying.
I think
Right.
the two big misdirections here were who was Snoke talking to at the beginning? Was he
Yeah.
talking to Kylo or was he talking to Rey?
Right.
And then the other one was, did Kylo Ren actually kill Leia?
Well,
or
they
was he
definitely,
shooting at
they
Leia?
definitely play that up. I
Yeah.
actually think that scene, my hunch is that scene with him and Leia
Aren't the
does,
same?
no, I think that does play out that way.
I don't think
You
she's
do?
on.
I think it's
that's
two different separate scenes.
I don't think
Well,
it's
I,
very
I,
strict, though.
I think
so.
totally
she,
doing
she
that.
was looking off into the distance. We're getting pretty nerdy here, but she was looking off into the distance, very similar to that sort of Luke Leia moment
Yeah,
at the end of
sure.
Empire. She looked off into the distance, and then there's a definite scene with Kylo at the same time where he kind of looks like they're having a Force moment, if you
Right.
will.
Yeah.
And I really think that is playing out, at least to some degree, like it shows in the trailer. Now,
Right.
they're obviously, I mean, that trailer really heightened that moment, so you think, is he going to do that? So what do you think? I
don't
think.
I don't think it's
there's
her
a lot of
ship. I think-
speculation too that he's going to save her,
You think so?
I think
which is interesting.
that's where my bet would be placed.
That's why I think it's all Mr. Look, remember when The Force Awakens came out? I remember sitting there watching the first time. I'm like, within 15 minutes, we're like, I've seen almost all the trailer.
Yeah.
You know, they're really good at throwing stuff in Rogue One. Now, I know they did a lot of edit because they changed up the ending.
Let's not talk about that trailer.
But when you had, what's her name?
Jin.
So.
She's up on the balcony, and you see the TIE fighter.
AKA
that
the
never
coolest scene from the trailer that
never
was cut out of
happened,
the
right?
movie.
One
That
other
never
thing I wanted to
happened,
mention
so-
was you sent a message to us last week with
I
a
wanted to bring this
poster.
up.
This poster, if you go back and you look through all 8 posters of the movies, the theatrical poster, you talk about it because I know how excited you were when you sent that.
See, there is a meme floating out there, but it's every poster of all the Star Wars from like A New Hope on up, and in the background is always the evil person.
And
it's
it's
usually
Luke.
it's Vader, and in this one it's Luke.
In the
Luke
background.
is in the background
with a black
and there's
cloak
also
on.
and there's
The
also
IMAX
a
thing?
IMAX.
Yeah.
One of those big sets they put out there when you walk in
a theater.
Yes, in a theater. One half of it is like
The light
Rey. The light side is Rey and Finn and Luke, and then on the dark side is Kylo, Snoke,
and Luke.
and Luke.
Yeah.
So
And Luke is the big looming
does he
presence in
turn
both
evil?
sides.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great.
I would love it.
I
would love
don't know
it.
if he
Change of
turns
pace.
evil, but I think it's what we've all talked about. The idea that he's found that there's just the Force.
He's a little bit of both.
He's a little bit of both.
I think that's more
I
likely
think
what it is.
he's realized that you can't be one or the other. You kind of got to.
Walk the line.
The Force
and
is
be
the
evil
Force.
At times,
There's no.
be good at times.
Although-
That's always what I've thought. There's no light side and dark side. It's like a coin. You can't take off half a coin and.
I get the
put in your
feeling,
pocket,
though, that
right?
the way that they might portray that in the movie is not someone who's in touch with those feelings and control of them. I think they might play him off as kind of like a little out of control with both the light and the dark. Almost not like a crazy old man, but kind of in that direction perhaps, because obviously I think that it's going to play out where Rey is going to be trying to get him to train her. He doesn't want to, or he obviously sees in the trailer that she's got this raw power that he doesn't want any part of. So we are probably overthinking
We're
this
definitely
to the
overthinking
nth
it.
degree.
Yeah.
But it was a good trailer in and of
Yeah.
itself. I think, honestly, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, if you look at this trailer, it was one of the most emotion-filled, like epic, like that scene with Kylo and Leia. You're just like, oh my god, like that was pretty intense. It was a really well done trailer.
That's what makes Star Wars so great. There is no other entity out there that gets people so wrapped up into what is this.
Yeah.
You know, usually all the other stories are pretty much the endings somewhat because they're from a book or something. This is such a still like now growing story, and where are they going to take this? That's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah, one of the few cinematic experiences that have been passed out from generation to generation too.
Truly.
'Cause a lot of people who have kids now are taking their kids to go see Star
Yeah,
Wars, so it's standing the test of time. For
I know
sure.
a lot of people don't like those reaction videos and think they're
they're
kind of
hilarious.
silly. I'm a sucker for those things, and I'll watch them if for no other reason, just to watch the trailer kind of again, but from a different perspective. And on your point, there is a number of those that have like families where it's like a guy that's kind of our age, maybe with his children, and they're just as into it, and he's the one who's geeking out more than any of them sitting there. I love seeing that. I love seeing how something like this brings generations together like that. It's pretty cool. So anyway, we've got our tickets, right? You got them.
Yeah, 2 sets of tickets.
Like
like $300 worth of tickets.
right afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a special 6 o'clock showing here locally, which is pretty cool.
And then a 9:45 right after that.
We probably will ditch the 9:45.
I will not.
I don't know.
Are you going?
I might be going.
I know Aaron's going. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Twice?
Yeah, I'll go twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Well, whether you're going once, twice, or 3 times, thanks for watching episode 4 of Chit Chat, and we will catch you guys next time.